Good evening. I'll call our regular board meeting of Monday, April the 25th to order. I would like to acknowledge that today's board meeting is being held within the traditional territory of the Deneza and Treaty 8. Our first order of business is to accept the agenda, and we do have some additions. Under the Secretary Treasurer's report and governance, we're going to add Provincial Budget 2023 consultation, just to bring you up to speed there. And in Stephen's report, please note when we're asked to pass the out-of-district field trips, there was a late addition to that today, Bert Ambrose. So make sure you had a look at that. It is on the web. Yeah.
And a final addition for my report under education, which would be number 4, would be the Provincial Skills Competition. Just a quick update because we have some breaking news on that.
Okay. Any other additions to the agenda? Could I have a mover and seconder to accept the agenda with those additions? Moved by Madeline, seconded by Ida. All in favor? And tonight, it's really exciting. We do have a presentation and a delegation. So I'm going to invite our friends Michelle and Margaret Little to come forward. And we've got presents. I like presents.
Well, thank you very much for having us come tonight. And for a change, I am giving, not asking. We have been involved, Peace River North Teachers Association, myself, the Fort St. John Museum, and the school district have been involved in a collection of history of education in Peace River North. And I have a couple little gems for you. I'll start off with why this started. Do you know where Forfar School is? It was at the vicinity of where the Halfway River meets the Peace. Our history of schools in this area is phenomenal. And Winnis Baker lived out in the Cecil Lake, Galata Creek area, and she went to the museum. She was very interested in history, and she started a book, a handwritten in pencil book. Each school was listed. Each school had the section number and where it was, and a little bit of history of it. Not all schools were represented, and even now we haven't got everything. But however, it was a start. I used Winnis's work as a basis, and I kept her work as an integrity. So her work has been scanned into the book. Her original book is in the museum if you want to go and have a look. And so when I was going through all this information, I found some snippets, I call it. In 1924, 1925, there were 548 schools in North and South Peace.
How many?
What?
How many?
This was from Winnis's notes that I took out of her book this morning. In 1929, the grades were extended to grade 12. In 1936, and this is the piece I want you to really tuck away in your memory, School District 59 included School District 60. It was all one. Moving on, 1946, School District 60 was created and included at that time South Taylor. And it later came, they split it and put it into Peace River South. In 1994, there were 17 elementary schools in School District 60, and then they started amalgamating the rural schools and taking the little schools and moving them in. And I was a product of that. I started off at Pine View School. They amalgamated with North Pine. And then when my brother went to school, he went to Upper Pine. So that's how with the roads and all the rest of it, that's how it happened. In your handout, on page 4, I talked a lot about connections and a lot about where we found the information. And as I say, I followed Winnis's agenda because I thought it was important. She had laid it out so well. There's lots of bits and pieces in the history that's missing, and I'm hoping that someday, somewhere along the line, somebody will come along like me and say, hey, what else can we add to it? I found, even after doing the book, I started another one. I promised I wouldn't, thanks to Jim. He was very patient. I have now started a second one, and I had no sooner closed it off, and I started getting more information. I've had wonderful conversations with people across the province. A lady who was a teacher at Fort St. John Central many years ago contacted me, and we've had a wonderful conversation. She's 92, and she's supposed to be sending me some information. She said, but it's been such a neat time talking with all these different people. A Bible that came from Lakeview School. Do you know where that was? Where Mile 54 is on the Alaska Highway, right across the road from the service station. That was where Lakeview School was, and it later, of course, amalgamated with Charlie Lake. But this family that I sent the Bible to, a student there, every morning the hams would read out of the Bible. The Bible would go in the corner of the desk and would stay there in its position. And the family, which is scattered all over the country, have sent notes back saying how pleased they are to get it. And another one was a speller that went out to a family whose part of the family is now living out in the Flat Rock area. And the messages that are coming back are phenomenal. There you go. As you can see, going back to our table of contents, we've tried to cover everything from the past, from the 1920 to the future, and I've added in all the numbers of the camps. There were little schools all along the highway. We don't have a lot of information, but I'm sure the next person coming along will have lots to tell us. The section on the last page, I think it's the last page, stories from the past. Winnis Baker's story is there, and then Brian Lowe had done our Heritage Rural Schools and History of Pineview Schools. And when you read through them, it's very interesting seeing the progression of way schools came together. The school dorms, of which I went to the first dorm. I don't have anything on the second school dorm. I had to put in the Alaska Highway Consortium of Teachers because when I started teaching here in 1967, I was one of the first students that the school district and Simon Fraser had an agreement that they would have student teachers with their 4 months practicum. In those days, that was rather unheard of, but Simon Fraser was very forward-looking, and here we are. So that's why that's really important to me. The BC Teachers Federation, of course, being on the BCTF executive for 6 years, has a special part in my heart. And I forgot to mention the PRNTA, of which I was the president. So there you go. That's it in a nutshell. And I'd just like to say thank you to Michelle for helping me get started on this collection. And I'd like to say thank you to Jim for putting up with all my paperwork and all the rest of it, and to School District 60 for supporting me in the questions that I had. And I know that there's lots of things we can put in here. The Fort St. John Museum has been absolutely wonderful. And you might like to go down and have a look through the schoolhouse, which has the boards on the wall are from the first, one of the first Fort St. John schools. So, there you go.
So in case you missed it, in 1924 to 1925, there were 548 schools.
Students.
Students in North Peace.
North
They
and
used to.
South.
North and south piece.
Yeah.
We thought you said schools.
Schools, I thought too.
What exciting.
540 students. That was pretty good though, those days.
Yeah, that is.
So what I have for you tonight, before we take an official picture, is the binder. And what I had started off doing was thinking, well, I could just put the pages in. But because when you put pages in, you either have to scan them in and have them, the numbers all change, and that's a real schmoz. So I decided to start collection number 2, but for what's in here is also on this little zip card for you. So you don't have to look at the whole thing, you could just go from there. So, go to what?
Thank you.
Margaret? Sorry, I'm guessing in the binder would tell us like where all these schools are
There's
or were?
maps in there.
Okay,
There's a map in there that shows where the schools were, as best we can do, and the legal description.
a bunch of them I've heard of, but there's a few that I definitely haven't.
Rosefield.
Moose Creek.
Thank you.
I'm just
In
guessing.
nighttime reading. Some of it's pretty exciting. Ivan Lewis at one point had started to gather a lot of historical. information in schools and never finished it off. So he might be a good one to add because he did start.
They say there's lots of stuff in there that, you don't even have to read the whole thing. You can read this piece.
Did you know that,
I'm really excited
the Pizza Lake,
And, oh,
the Trans Pine,
really excited.
is actually kind of a barn now on my dad owns the property, my brother lives there. Wow. It's an old structure that they moved in. What's the original Trans Pine?
Yeah, we most of the schools were closed before I saw. Osborne is the only little school we've had down since I've been
Where
on.
we live? Right now, corner is now the Trans
There
Pine.
was one at Very Dog, the strategy, I remember.
Yeah, I remember some, but I wasn't on the board.
But they changed, they go over time.
No,
Nice seeing you. Good to see you. Take care. Thank you very much.
I don't know when it started existing, but.
Thank you.
We'll never be able to get that book out of hand.
No, I'm gonna put the flash drive right here and I'm gonna circulate it.
Yes.
Should we finish reading that by Friday?
Pardon?
Should we finish reading that by Friday?
Oh, yeah.
Test on Monday.
Here, I've got your.
Thank you. Do you stay? Okay, thank you.
Good night all, carry on.
Good night.
Good night.
See you, Jim.
So, before we move into trustee celebrations, I have another celebration. I would like to ask Leah to come up. She doesn't know about this. Leah, come into the middle.
We can't put it on the agenda, Leah.
You're right on your own.
I haven't done this in so long. I'd like to, on behalf of School District 60, the board, present you with your 10-year pin.
Oh, thank you very much.
Speech.
Well, I assumed there'd be no speech. but- Moving on to trustee input and celebrations, we'll start with trustee Campbell.
I haven't done much because we had our close down for spring break. I attended a couple PAC meetings and that's about all. Because since the last board meeting. And I did not attend the conference.
Did you want to share anything, Erin?
No, I don't, no.
Well, I know you stay in touch, so I don't always know what you might have. Okay, trustee Gillis.
Since the last board meeting, I can't think, besides attending the AGM last weekend, I think I was absent for the last board meeting, so I never did mention, like I did attend the BCPC AGM virtually. That's about it.
Vice Chair Lehman.
That's been since the last board meeting. I would have done the labor management and AGM. I think that's all.
How much bargaining stuff have you had to do?
Well, there were 8 sessions total, but I don't know if there was anything since. I don't think.
Yeah,
so.
you've lost. Okay. Trustee Scott Moncrief.
The AGM, science fair, please ask me to go and do that again. Mr. Superintendent Petrucci and myself did the food contest at Upper Pine, and I hope to get asked to go back and do that again. I very much enjoyed that. No, don't be like that. Been in touch with a few of my administrators. One of my small project schools is doing very, very well. Their enrollment is up, I think, about 20% for next year. So everything's heading in the right direction in that school in Buick. So very excited. And that's about it for me.
Trustee Snow.
I was down in Vancouver for the meetings. Again, with the high school, the ELC, Ambrose, talking to them there, seeing how they're doing. Went to a presentation at Ambrose. Been around to a couple other principals just to get their opinions, everything on the new food stuff. Just been keeping good.
And for myself, I got to attend a Baldonnel PAC meeting and a Montgomery PAC meeting. I've been doing some things with the NIB and I attended AGM.
Ellen, just before we move on, I think it would be appropriate to start talking about that October is election for school trustees, and that this is kind of a celebration that, you know, it's rewarding being a trustee. This is a public meeting and we should start talking about, you know, if people want to run, get a hold of any of us and we'll let them know the details, so.
Sounds good. All right. Moving on then, we'll move to 5.0 on the agenda. Minutes of the regular board meeting of March the 7th. And that is pages 6 to 10 in your packet. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Bill, seconded by Aaron. Are there any errors or omissions that people have noticed in those minutes? All in favor? Carried. Business arising from the minutes. Take a quick look through. Bill?
Just a quick breakdown, if you could, Stephen. How is it looking for next year for staffing wise? I know, like in here, you always give your report on teachers and is it looking something like normal, or are we?
We're sort of still in full swing of post and fill since our first big wave there in February. So positions are getting filled, but it's early to know exactly where we're landing on those first big waves. but positions continue to get filled up.
That sounds like it's looking pretty normal.
Yeah, still lots of positions to fill.
Yeah.
But some are being filled, yeah, you bet.
Any other thoughts? Right, we'll move on to 6.0, approval of excerpts of the regular board meeting February 2022, and that's page 11 in your package. I have to remember to use my fingers. Can I get a mover and seconder for this? Moved by Bill, seconded by Nicole. Any errors or omissions? Not very much there. All in favor? Announcements and reminders. We've added the concept of board advance on July the 4th. The track meets on there, retirement and long service awards is on there. We can, let's see if it's got a date in it. It doesn't have a date in it. Okay. Are there any other things to add to the announcements and reminders? They have returned with a district public speaking contest, and and the other date I wondered about is Doig Days, and I meant to ask you about that, Stephen. Do we have a date for Doig Days?
I actually don't know if we do. It may not have been set. But I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, because district public speaking will add, Leah, for elementary schools is on May the 25th.
Ann Roberts Young.
And Ann Roberts Young, and I know you'll probably, Bert Ambrose has already reached out. They're looking for some trustees to judge speeches. You may get asked as more schools get going with that. But yeah, I was thinking that about Doig Days, and we don't have.
I'll follow up on that.
And the other thing that we should be able to run is the elementary badminton tournament, so I don't have the date on that either.
I do.
Do you?
Yeah, as a sort of matter of note, the badminton tournament for elementary is back on. It's Thursday evening, April 28th, and all day Friday. In between the schools, Margaret Marbury is hosting part of it on Thursday night, and I believe the rest of it is only at North Peace on the Friday, the 29th. You're certainly welcome to swing by.
On my calendar on May 3rd, we need to vote.
I can't hear you, sorry.
No, it's June the 3rd. There was a mistake
Okay.
on something. It's June the 3rd for the district track and field meet.
Okay.
We don't have anything on May the 3rd. Well, I have a dental meeting, but.
I'm gonna be washing dishes. You want me to shut the door?
Sure, thank you. You wouldn't, sorry, you wouldn't happen to know what day Doig Days is on, would you?
Oh, God, I have to check my computer.
No problem, we'll ask you later, thank you.
All right, so when the provisional minutes come out, those.
Hi, sorry, can I ask a question about Doig Days?
Yeah.
Are they gonna, because last year it didn't happen for the grade 4s, are they gonna allow the grade 5s to go this year?
I don't know.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yeah, I haven't heard very much about Doig Days yet, so. All right. Moving on to senior staff reports, superintendent's report.
Thanks, Helen. Item number 1, human resources summary report. Under education, item number 1 is my online report, superintendent's report. And in our framework for enhancing student learning under intellectual development, just a reminder to the public and the link to some of the information related to the recent announcement of the secondary grad requirement as far as including Indigenous coursework and information. Second item there, just a reminder also that there is this website called the Provincial Dashboard on Student Success. And there's one specifically for SD60 where you can find statistics in terms of number of students and various reports on assessment. There is usually a bit of a lag as far as the assessments that are available on that site. Under also academic areas is inclusion, and all of our principals, vice principals, and senior staff recently participated in a presentation by a leadership group of adults who have FASD and went through the system with that and are now providing leadership to education systems as to how best serve the needs of our students with FASD. So it was a very informative workshop, and it was based on a survey that they conducted. Under human and social development, even amidst COVID guidelines that were constantly shifting, April Central School, Elementary School of the Arts was able to produce a musical, Shrek, and it was a big success by all accounts. Unfortunately, not everybody could go and see it because of some of those restrictions. We do have more pictures that we can send out to the public and to trustees as well. Under career and skill development, just wanted to profile a little bit one of the ADST units. This is it here, and Hannah is not a specific student, it's just the name on the box. And these are kits that were initially designed by staff. Last year, this particular one was started by Elaine McEachran when she was working for our district principal, Brian Campbell. Then Pat Jansen's daughter Monica also then put on a YouTube display of this lesson. And then recently this fall, with a collaboration with Learning Services, our occupational therapist, physical therapist, and our other clinicians here at the district have started to go through these kits and include tools and processes that make it more inclusive. For example, instead of a student having to draw or carve out their name, they already include the name of the student as well as cutouts that they can place in them. And another example is, because this is a string art kit, is instead of using, because some of our students with disabilities and challenges struggle with their fine and gross motor skills. So this is a very simple solution of feeding the string through a pen and then using that to go around the nails and feeding the string that way. As well as you can see pre-drilling and marking the holes for the nails themselves. And so it was a very collaborative project, bringing all aspects of curriculum and inclusion together for these ADST kits. So this is just the beginning, and we're going to be developing kits for all kinds of units as we go along. So trustees can have a look at that later as well. The second pictures as a collaboration with facilities. It's called just basically a raised board, similar to what graphic designers or the old graphics architects would use to raise up a bit the level of the desk of the student. And for our students, many of them with autism or other challenges, they find this particularly useful. So it's a very low cost creative invention that has the support of facilities. Under operations and HR, Helen had mentioned previously about the non-instructional day on April the 22nd. There were several workshops being offered for staff. One of those was called Pictures, using pictures to advance literacy skills. And it's a particular method called the Picture Word Induction Model, or PWIM. We love our acronyms in education. Essentially, and I use this a lot as a language teacher, it's using images to drive not only vocabulary, but action verbs and all kinds of language processes, and they're finding it very, very helpful. I've mentioned, and as the public knows, there are proposed BC school food guidelines, which are based on the 2019 Canada Health Guidelines. Those are still in draft form, and as districts and staffs across the province have a look at that, there will be more information and decisions made down the road. Truth and Reconciliation, there was a field trip to the Beaton Park on March 15th with the class Learning from the Elders. And it was very effective because they were able to go and visit several locations in that area, look at various plants and fauna and flora in terms of some of the medicinal properties as well as the history. And so we can see that repeating itself down the road here each year. And with that new facility now built, I don't know if you've seen the chalet at the Beaton Park for the cross-country ski club. It's an ideal location to host some groups of students in the future as well, so we're excited about that. Second thing is the Indigenous Learning Day, a collaboration with our PRNTA, with our rights holders, with the district, our curriculum development team, and our Pro-D teams. And so there's a full slate of courses, workshops, activities happening. Registration is now up. We are trying to prioritize our sort of teaching and QP staff to be able to register. Trustees will also be able to register, but we want to make sure there's enough spaces for our staff in some of those key workshops first. And finally, take 3, just some celebrations around the district, including starting off with Baldotto, where the kids actually made handmade instead of computer types of arcade games, and as part of an ADST unit, and it was well received. They then displayed those. And secondly, Mrs. Merrill's class doing some work with the kids around supporting Ukrainian families and having some displays with that. Charlie Lake School, we have a teacher there with his class. He's participating in Bluey Day, so he's looking for support for that fundraiser. And finally, as you'll know, also with Trustee Campbell supporting and the District of Taylor, the nomination for a posthumous award for Donna Lee Cooper being recognized for her exemplary teaching stint here in School District 60. So there's a write-up here. And would you know when we would hear back about that?
No, I don't.
No. And so she organized several things, including meet the author in creating the books, which went on for a number of years at Taylor School. I think Trustee Campbell and myself and others here have read some of those stories during that celebration. So we're hopeful in terms of that award. Next item on my report is I'm asking for approval of out-of-district sports or field trips. The first one being for the North Peace field trip, as well as the bird ambush trip for bouldering based near Chetwynd. Looking for approval for those 2 trips. And finally, just a quick update from Mr. Campbell. Our students did extremely well at the provincial competition. I'm going to have to read an Instagram post that he sent to me, and I'll have a full write-up for next month's board meeting, but we'll probably see some of this in the media. So just share it with you now. So we won silver at the secondary level and bronze at the post-secondary level. This was for robotics. Hang on, here's more right here, sorry. NPSS is on its way to nationals for Skills Canada. NPSS students claimed the gold and silver medal in robotics. First was Lucas Gill and Matthew Esau. Second was Benison Hall and Cordell Olenberger. Good luck at the national competition. So that was in robotics. Also, in our hair styling competition, we had a couple of students qualified to move on there as well. And there'll be more information provided in the update for next meeting. Actually, I do have an email that was just sent to me tonight. Hairdressing students who participate in provincial skills competitions have to complete a 6-hour workday on the floor. They're judged on bridal updo, men's graduated classic cut, and the trend-setting cut in color. Ms. Milamaki, the hair instructor, has entered students in the provincial skills contest for the last 10 years, and this is the first time both students have received medals. Ms. Milamaki says, my students have always placed in the regional competition and do well at provincial level, but placing in the top 3 is a first, especially for both competitors. And so we're very excited about that. And that is my report.
Thank you. Could I have a mover and seconder for Stephen's report? Moved by David, seconded by Aaron. And now we'll go through his report item by item. The first one is the Human Resources Summary Report for Teachers. Any questions there? About people retiring. We go through Stephen's report, the framework for enhancing student learning. Human and social development. She was going to send us, Lynn was going to send us copies of her discs of Shrek because we couldn't all go, so.
Well, make sure we get that to you.
That would be nice.
You bet. Because it was recorded.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I just remembered that. Anything else related to Stephen's report? Lost on air?
Oh, sorry, it's cut out on me there. Sorry about that.
My computer doesn't.
It's cut out on me and I'm not able to bring it back yet. Sorry.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions of Stephen? David?
You were talking about, district trips or something?
Well, we have to pass the second
So
motion.
that's gonna
Got
be.
it. Okay, that's fine.
Separately, you can
Yeah.
check.
Okay. All right, so all in favor of the full body of the report, then we'll pull the motions out related to field trips. And now, could I get a motion that the field trips for both North Peace and Bernardo's? Moved by Aaron, that the Board of Education approve the attached out-of-district field trips for both North Peace and Bert Ambrose, seconded by Bill. Any questions related to those? It's a long ride on a bus for grade 3s and 4s. Any other questions, comments? Okay, all in favor?
Thank you.
Moving on to the Secretary Treasurer's report.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I have a finance update to March 31st, 2022. Some information regarding the board office summer shutdown and hours for that. I have an update on before and after school care. So, as you all know, we've been running before and after school cares from, depending last year in which areas, either March or April. So I have some data that we projected based on current numbers to the end of the year. And we also, this year, thanks to policy changes within the ministry, we're able to, instead of just offering before and after school care, we can also offer to students and parents non-instructional days as well as school closure coverage. So we can now offer Christmas break, spring break, as well as we'll be running a summer program this year. So at the end of last year, as was startup, and we did start kind of mid-year when people had already established their childcare plans, we were at a loss of $35,000. So for the current year, we estimate that we will be in a position of not loss, but we will have roughly $3,800 surplus at the end of the year. So we will be a couple years working at covering the opening year's growing pains. So in addition to that, we have till June 30th to finish our sites, and the only item that's left in all the sites is the outdoor classrooms, and those have been ordered a month and a half ago, and we're aiming for the end of May for installation, and then we have to submit to the ministry for final funding for the before and after school care sites. So, and I think that covers this before and after school care. And then we have the HR summary staff report as presented. And then I will need a motion to appoint the chief elections officer as well as the deputy chief election officer. So that is my report.
No, we're going to speak to this. We added that, remember?
And we also have to speak to,
Could be a we.
Helen would like to speak to something in my report.
No. and I worked together on this, but
Yes.
it had come to my mind that as we go into the budget process, it's time to start thinking about what information we would like to make sure goes to the provincial budgets committee. And Aaron and Ida have a good base letter that we've operated from for the last couple of years. With COVID, there was some opportunity for in-person, not in-person written submission. We've done it all ways, but the information came today that they're going to move back to the back to in-person either in virtually in June. So the timing won't be September, the timing will be June. So we have to start thinking about what points we would like to make with the financial standing committee. And I think one of the things that we heard loud and clear at AGM that prompted, I have to give Sherelle Warrington some kudos, because from the NIB, we put forward that motion that the ministry would support and pay for exempt staff increases. And we weren't allowed to bring it forward because the wording was too similar and it had already been made in the last 2 years. But if you looked at that last motion that Sherelle got in, it had it in there. And the concept of looking at inflationary costs, and if the per pupil allocation hasn't gone up at all, but inflation and everything else that we're trying to do has gone up, what's left to go into the classroom where the students are? What's the impact there? That's where there was a lot of conversation around that, especially if out of contract negotiations, there are wage increases, and at this point, there's not a commitment from the ministry to fund those.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So we have a bit of work to do to gather information and see what items we want to bring forward to provincial, the provincial standing committee. So, and the timeline is quite a bit tighter than last year. So,
yeah. Well, I think they've moved back to their more typical pattern, pre-COVID pattern. Would that be right, Aaron and Ida? The standing committee was typically in June before?
I believe so. I think, yeah.
Yeah, but it hasn't been the last couple of years, so.
Yeah, no.
So this is moving back to it. So get your thinking hats on, because if we have to have information to them, we spent a lot of time deciding whether we were doing a letter and speaking or just doing a letter. But obviously we're looking at needing to let them know that what we want to do, and there's some timelines in here. Late May, so our thoughts will have to be together by late May. Right.
but we have to have a request in by May 6th.
By May 6th. So I'm assuming that we want to present.
Yeah, I know, like in the past, we had really good feedback when we presented in person. I think it was, I know we got feedback when we sent the letters, but there's there's something about being in person, and they can ask you questions and you can ask them questions. And sometimes you actually get more time than the allotted time, particularly if they are curious. If you have a really good presentation and they're curious, they will continue the discussion over the time that you're allotted. That happened to me both times I presented in person. So
yeah, actually it did with me as well, because you get into a conversation with them and then they will back and forth. And I've even had a recall afterwards that they've come back and asked more questions.
All right. So.
And they take copious amounts of notes too. And also when you do it in person, they look at what we've presented as a school district, and they'll go to the stuff that from the Ministry of Education, what they've sent in, for financial asks and requests too. So it kind of, they look at it from all angles, and you just can't go wrong with doing it in person, absolutely. So if somebody could attend in person, it's definitely well worth our time.
So can I have a mover and a seconder for Angela's report, please? Moved by Bill, seconded by David. I did see you, Aaron. Okay, any questions related to the financial update? For Angela?
I'm reading it right. We're kind of on track.
Yeah, we did, we have a little bit of wiggle room there, but that's, great news because, we did have March break. Spending was kind of put on hold, and now this seems to be the time when spending, will ramp up as people see what they have left in their budgets and,
Yeah, we're on track.
yes, we are on track.
Board office shut down and summer hours, just a basic attachment.
And
Go ahead.
it's just a pretty standard order. We reviewed the dates we were closed last summer and we're aligned with those, so.
Questions related to before and after school care update. Madeline?
So obviously, the laws, the district is expected to cover. Do you think that because of this policy change for being open during the breaks has already made a difference?
Yeah, and so we, even over spring break, we brought in an additional $8,000 in revenue that we wouldn't have been able to bring in prior to that. So I feel like we will definitely in the next, I don't know if I want to give next year or the year after, but we'll be tracking to see the impact of the before and after school cares, and then we will, I think we'll just grow as we have non-instructional days. That first year, people had their daycare set, their childcare set, and also we weren't really attractive if we couldn't offer, so you come to us before and after school care, then you have to go to somebody else for spring break and non-instructional days. Now we're kind of the full meal deal, so.
The only thing, and I think we did talk about it, the spring break care and summer care, there were groups like NEAT and there were some, like the art space and things like that ran camps that they used as kind of a fundraiser for programs. But when we did talk about this addition, we're not hurting any of those, are we?
Well, we're not, if we're speaking from a per student perspective, we're not undercutting anybody, so we're competitive in the market. And we do have some considerations, like we do have a bit of a deficit to cover, so we're mindful of that as well. And the programs offer, I think they have different themes. Alicia Seltham, our coordinator, she has different themes going on for different weeks, so people might check out the theme this week and they can move around, so.
Helen, too, can I see like the NEAT camp, that may be even for a little bit of the older kids. I know that they do have some for younger kids too, but Noel's been going to the NEAT camp for a few years now. And it's mostly older kids who may or may not, be within the age requirement for the before and after school care, you know what I mean? And also, with what Angela's saying, all those summer camps, they I don't know, they always have wait lists. Like it's really hard to get into them, like really, really hard. You have to jump on it almost right away. So I think I agree that this isn't going to undercut anybody. This is just going to add choice for parents because it is really difficult to get into these summer camp programs. And if you miss the deadline, like if you miss it right away, you may not get what you need, and so, yeah, I think having a summer program is good for the community.
Well, that's a good perspective. I haven't looked for it.
And then mom and dad have to take time off work and productivity, lost wages, all of those things. So.
Yeah, I think it's a great service that we're offering, and I'm really happy with Alicia. She's doing a great job, so.
Yeah, I don't think we'll cut into those summer camps and stuff, because I know that there's a lot of kids that they just go into those that don't need the actual daycare through the hall, but they look at what theme it is that week and they may attend just for them to have an activity to go to, so.
Any questions related to the human resources support staff summary? Retirement score, hopefully they're not bus drivers.
I think there was a bus driver in there. But you can see from the shuffle, so, the new assignments and changes to existing are all in the custodial pool. People taking new positions as someone is out on a leave. So, that's why you can, it looks like a lot, but it's really, it's from within, so.
Great. Could I have someone make the motion that the board approve Angela Telford as Chief Elections Officer and Brandy Longley as Deputy Chief Elections Officer for the 2022 School Board Trustee elections? Moved by Ida, seconded by Madeline. And provincial budget consultation, are there any further discussion to that? Because we sort of jointly presented, right? Probably got a little off topic there. We're off process, so. Calling the question, all in favor?
Thank you.
Yep.
For the record, Doig Days is May 26th. For grade 4 only. So, thanks.
Did you get that, Aaron?
I did. I got back from the bio break just in time.
All right, and Nicole sends her regrets, something came up and she had to leave us for the rest of the meeting. We're on item 9, reports of the regular committee of the whole meeting, April the 11th, which is pages 14 to 15 in your agenda package. Can I please have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Aaron, seconded by David.
I can't move it. I wasn't there. I forgot.
Oh, there, sorry. So Bill and David. Moved by David, seconded by Bill. Any errors or omissions? All in favor?
I just have a quick question. It's got nothing to kind of do with this. The Cameron Lake, the Lauren Hamry, was that the lady that was there when we did our,
Yep.
when-
Yes.
it's the same, oh, okay. She just had a different last name, I think, yeah.
Okay. So just looking, any business arising from those minutes? Madeline?
I mean, just a quick question. I know the chamber's membership was mentioned, and actually thought about that. Grandpa me did attend the AGM. So, because I think they're gonna start back up with their luncheons and whatever. Is the idea to attend those, or as a member, or is that just kind of? I don't know.
I think Brenda used to go, but I don't know who else used to go. That's just David.
Go ahead, though.
Helen?
Yep.
We usually have the secretary treasurer be the member of the Chamber of Commerce. And then if there was something that was coming up on the agenda for education wise, a lot of times they'd bring it back, and then if a trustee was interested, we'd just pay for that one chamber. Because sometimes they have educational speakers and things, but we were never members. It was always just the secretary treasurer. And then if there was something that came up as trustees, we would go. That's just the history of it, so.
Moving on to 9.3, Policy Committee. So the accumulated operating service policy, this has been out for notice of motion. Was there any comments back on it? No? Madeline moved it the first time. Are there any other questions, concerns about this policy? Could I have a seconder for this policy, please? Seconded by Bill or Aaron. You can pick, Leah. I got hands all over. So can I call the question on this policy if there's no further comment? All in favor? Moving on to financial planning and reporting. Initially, the mover on this was David Scott Moncrief. And we're looking that the Board of Education adopt the policy related to financial planning and reporting. Bill, you ready to second it? Okay, seconded it by Bill. Any further discussion related to it? I just, at some point, can we see what their multi-year template looks like so we know?
They don't have one.
Oh.
Mhm. It's up to the district to come up with a presentation,
Okay, we look forward to that.
as do I.
Yeah, I bet.
Steve will make it for you.
Stephen, thank you. Put that in the minutes, Leah.
Underline it.
Bylaw 190. We need a mover and a seconder on this one because it's the first time that we have looked at it. Oh, no, no. Okay, the board, sorry, I got mixed up. It's a bylaw. So I need a mover and seconder that we're looking at doing the first reading in full form. So moved by Aaron, seconded by Madeline. All right, so then I guess I get to read, right? Okay, speed read. Be ready for the seconder. Okay, this is bylaw number 190, a bylaw to provide for the organization of the board, which we are looking at the review of it, which occurred in 2021 of April. Inaugural meetings. Each electoral year, the first meeting of the board shall be called by the secretary treasurer and shall be as soon as possible after the general election, and in any event, no later than November 30th of that year. Until such time as the board chairperson has been elected, either the secretary treasurer or superintendent of schools shall serve as the interim chairperson. Each trustee will declare any relationship that exists which may be interpreted as a conflict of interest. Following the swearing in of new trustees, the interim chairperson shall call for nominations by a secret ballot for the position of board chairperson. The nominees shall have the opportunity to speak to their nomination if they so choose. The election shall be conducted by secret ballot. The person receiving a clear majority shall be declared board chairperson. If no person receives a clear majority, the nominees shall be invited to speak to their candidacy, and then another secret ballot shall be taken. Should a tie still occur, the election will be decided by the drawing of lots. Following the election of board chairperson, the order of business shall be election of vice chairperson. The election of vice chairperson shall be conducted in the same manner as the election of the chairperson. An election of provincial councillor and alternate shall be conducted. An election of a British Columbia Public School Employers Association representative and an alternate shall be conducted. A majority of the vote may elect a new chairperson or vice chairperson at any time by proposing a motion to elect by secret ballot at the following meeting. Trustees who are attending the election meeting electronically needs to submit their votes to a scrutineer who is in attendance at the meeting. Staff will set up protocols and processes prior to the meeting. All evidence, whether electronic or by secret ballot, will be destroyed. Trustees who know they will be unavailable during the election shall let the board chairperson know prior to the meeting what position or positions they would be willing to let their name stand for if nominated. Chairperson and presiding officers. The chairperson and vice chairperson shall be elected at the first meeting held after the annual general election, as referred to in clause 1.1. In a non-electoral year, the chairperson and vice chairperson shall be elected at the first meeting in November. The chairperson shall preside at all meetings of the board, but may vacate the chair in order to enter substantive debate. The chairperson should vacate the chair to propose or second a substantive motion and should not resume the chair until his or her motion has been fully disposed of. The vice chairperson shall preside in the absence of the chairperson or when the chairperson vacates the chair. In the event that neither the chairperson nor the vice chairperson are able or willing to take the chair, the presiding officer shall be elected by the board for that meeting. That chairperson shall rule on all points of order and shall state his or her reasons and the authority for ruling when making a ruling. The chairperson's ruling shall be subject to appeal of the board. An appeal may only be requested immediately after a ruling and before resumption of business. The chairperson shall vote in accordance with section 11.4. Meetings and general information. 3.1. The secretary treasurer must be present at the time a decision of the board is rendered and must record any decision. 3.2. If the secretary treasurer is unable to attend the meeting, or if the meeting concerns the work performance for employment of the secretary treasurer, the board may designate another employee of the board to attend the meeting in place of the secretary treasurer to perform the duties of the secretary treasurer at the meeting. Minutes shall be a record of matters discussed and decisions reached. All regular meetings of the board shall be open to the public. If, in the opinion of the board, the public interest so requires, persons other than trustees and the secretary treasurer may be excluded from the meeting. The chairperson may expel and include from a board meeting any member of the general public or staff person who he or she considers has been guilty of improper conduct. A majority of the trustees present at a meeting of the board may expel a trustee from that meeting for improper conduct. A regular meeting shall be a minimum of once per month unless otherwise decided by a motion of the board. The quorum for regular meeting shall be a majority of trustees holding office at that time. All regular meetings shall stand adjourned at 4 hours after the commencement unless a resolution is passed by a 2/3 majority to extend the hour of adjournment. At the appointed time for commencement of a meeting, the chairperson shall ascertain that a quorum is present before proceeding to the business of the meeting. The quorum has not been made within 1/2 hour after the appointed time. The meeting shall stand adjourned until the next regular meeting date or until another meeting shall have been called in accordance with these bylaws. After a meeting has commenced, if notice is drawn to a lack of quorum, the chairperson shall ascertain whether there is a lack of quorum, and if so found, adjourn the meeting to a time certain or to the regular, to a time certain, that doesn't make sense, or to the next regular meeting date at his or her discretion. The agenda and notice of meeting shall be prepared by the secretary treasurer under the agenda direction of the chairperson. The proposed agenda must be available to each trustee at least 72 hours in advance of the meeting. A change to the prescribed order of business may be proposed by a trustee and shall be accepted by consensus. The board may conduct its meetings electronically, providing that two-way communication is possible. Special meetings. A special meeting of the board may be called by the chairperson or upon request of the majority of the trustees. It may be called by the secretary or treasurer. No business other than that for which the meeting was called shall be conducted at the meeting. Notice, either written or verbal, of a special meeting shall be given to each trustee at least 24 hours in advance of the meeting. Notwithstanding section 5.2A above, a special meeting of the board may be held at any time without previous notice if every trustee agrees to waive notice. Electronic meeting expectations. Rationale for developing expectations for trustees for electronic meetings. Fully electronic meetings or blended electronic meetings will be needed for quite some time. All trustees have expressed some concerns related to the electronic meetings that we've held. As more meetings have been done electronically, our understanding of our needs and how to do things has developed. Prior to the meeting, make sure you have login information available. Sign into the meeting at least 10 minutes ahead of meeting start time. This gives us time to clear up technical difficulties ahead of the meeting scheduled start time. Guidelines for trustees joining on online meeting. Use district-provided devices and school district-provided emails for board business. This addresses security concerns. A recommended browser works best for accessing online meetings. Locations where trustees are calling from to attend the meeting should be one where there is no background disruption. Ensure good lighting to avoid this appearing in shadow. Avoid uncovered windows or bright light sources behind you. Let others know that you're participating in a meeting and that you can't be interrupted during the meeting. If you use earphones, the meeting will not be audible to others in the location that you are calling from. It is especially important during the in-camera portion of the meeting that the meeting is not audible to others and others can't see your computer screen. Guidelines for trustees during the meeting. Roll call should be done so that everyone is aware of who is attending the meeting. This is especially important during our regular meetings where quorum must be established. Speak clearly and slowly. This is important to the minute taker and shows consideration for the fact that minute taking is an electronic and blended environment is more difficult. This also assists in the understanding of others in the meeting. Trustees should give their full name when making or seconding a motion. There should be one conversation at a time. The online meeting chat function will be available for use during the meeting. Use chat to confirm that you wish to speak and add your questions or comments there. Mute your microphone when you are not talking. Leave your webcam on for the duration of the meeting. Body language is an important aspect of communication. It is also important that others can note your presence, especially if you are needed for meeting the number requirement for quorum. An informed vote can only be cast if you've been listening to the full conversation around the issue. If a participant is needing to leave for a break during the meeting, notify the chair so that your absence for a portion of the meeting can be noted, if necessary, i.e. ensuring quorum is met for voting on a motion. If you have to leave a meeting early, notify the chair so that the time that you left can be documented appropriately in the minutes. When voting is required, either physically, raise your hand and or verbally give your response. Be present in an electronic meeting the same way that you would be during a regular meeting. Silence your phone, stay seated and focused, return from breaks on time. Closed session, the in-committee portion of regular or special meetings. The board may conduct meetings without public or without the public and staff present, at which matters of a confidential nature shall be discussed. No trustee shall disclose to the public the proceedings of a closed meeting unless a resolution has been passed at the closed meeting to allow disclosure. Minutes of a closed meeting shall be kept in the same manner as a regular meeting, but shall be approved only by the board in a closed meeting and shall be filed separately. In addition to the minutes, a record containing general statement of matters discussed and decisions reached shall be prepared. The record is open to inspection to anyone excluded from a meeting. Unless otherwise determined by the board, the following matters shall be considered in closed session. Personnel matters, salary claims and negotiation, evaluation, discipline, or retirement of employees, employee assignment, promotion, or termination, legal matters, accident claims, legal actions by or against the board, legal opinions respecting any matters which would be considered in private session, student matters, Indigenous students, student discipline, property matters, negotiation regarding purchase, lease, or sale of property, future site planning and designation, investigations regarding possible school closures, auditor's management letter, medical matters respecting individual students or employees, a statement referring to the safety, security, or protection of students, personnel, or board property, such matters as the board may in public session determine. A member of the board may make a motion to place a closed session item of business onto the agenda of the public session, and upon the motion being seconded and discussed, a simple majority vote in favor of the motion shall be sufficient cause to move the item into the public session. Rules of order. Where these rules are silent and where not inconsistent with these rules, Robert's Rules of Order shall apply to the conduct of meetings, provided further that where both these rules and Robert's Rules of Orders are silent, the standing orders of the British Columbia Legislature shall be followed. Where there is an inconsistency between these rules and the School Act shall apply over the rule in question. A board may adopt a procedural rule for one or more meetings by resolution of a majority of 2/3 of the trustees present at the meeting. A rule other than the requirement for notice of meetings may be suspended by unanimous consent of the trustees present. The rules may be amended by bylaw only at a meeting of which notice of intention to propose the amendment has been given at a previous meeting. Thank you. The chairperson's ruling on a point of order shall be based on rules of order as stated in paragraph 7.1 herein. An appeal of a ruling of the chairperson shall be decided without debate by a majority vote of the trustees present. When an appeal is successful, it does not necessarily set a precedent. All questions shall be decided by a vote on motion. Motion shall be phrased in a clear and concise manner so as to express an opinion or achieve a result. A preamble does not form part of a resolution when passed. The chairperson may divide a motion containing more than one subject. If he, we should make that he, she. If he, she feels this would produce a fairer or clearer result, and the same shall be voted on in the form in which it is divided. No motion other than to postpone consideration of a question or a procedural motion shall be repeated during the calendar year except by the reconsideration process. All motions shall be seconded. All motions are debatable except the following. Motion for adjournment of debate or for adjournment of a meeting unless such a motion contains a time for recommencement of debate or for a new meeting. Motion to fix time for adjournment of a meeting, motion to proceed to the next business, motion to go into committee of the whole or closed session. All motions shall be subject to amendment except the following. Motion that the question be now put, motion for adjournment of debate or adjournment of a meeting, motion to table unless such a motion contains a date for further consideration of the matter tabled, motion to refer committees, motion to proceed to next business. An amendment to a motion does not require a notice. Only one amendment to an amendment. Only one amendment to an amendment shall be allowed, and the same shall be dealt with before the amendment is decided. Amendments must be strictly relevant to the main motion and not alter in a material way or be contrary to the principle embedded in the main motion. Reconsideration. A question may be reconsidered only if notice of a request for reconsideration has been given at the previous meeting and if reconsideration is approved by a 2/3 majority. Debate. Debate shall be strictly relevant to the question before the meeting, and the chairperson shall warn speakers who violate this rule. No trustee shall speak more than once to a question except the mover of a motion, who shall have the right to speak first and to make a reply when all other trustees who wish to speak have spoken. No trustee shall speak for a period in excess of 3 minutes at one time. The chairperson may caution a trustee who persists in tedious and repetitious debate and may direct him to discontinue or if he or she persists. A matter of privilege, a matter dealing with the rights or interests of the board as a whole or a trustee personally may be raised at any time and shall be dealt with forthwith before resumption of business. No trustee shall interrupt another trustee who has the floor except to raise a point of order to appointed privilege. Voting. All trustees present at a meeting must vote, although a trustee must abstain from voting if he states the meeting his reasons thereon. Voting shall be by a show of hands and only the results recorded unless a trustee requests recording of names. Where names are recorded, both positive and negative votes shall be recorded. Where a trustee is present at a meeting and abstains from voting without stating a reason, that shall be deemed to be an affirmative vote. The chairperson shall vote at the same time as the other members of the board, and in the case of equality of votes for and against a motion, the question is resolved in the negative, and the chairperson shall so declare. All questions shall be divided by a majority of the votes of the trustees present, and voting save as otherwise provided by these bylaws. Committees. Standing board committees of the whole shall address issues and topics brought forward for both in-camera or regular in-depth discussion. The board chairperson will chair the meetings or assign another trustee to act as chair for specific topics. The committee chairperson may invite resource persons as required. Committees shall report to the board on a regular basis. Standing committees shall have jurisdiction to consider and make recommendations to the board in matters assigned to them or in other matters within their terms of reference. No action shall be taken on the standing committee report until the report has been formally approved by the board. Special or ad hoc committees for any purpose may be appointed by the board chairperson as required. Bylaws and resolutions. All matters shall be dealt with by motion, notice of motion, or bylaw. Notice of motion shall have one reading, and a bylaw shall have 3 readings. The following shall only be resolved by bylaw. Amendments to the bylaws. Acquisition or disposal of property owned or administered by the board where required by the School Act or the Act gives the board the power to develop. Procedure on bylaws. With the exception of the school-owned bylaws, budget bylaws, and or budget and school referendum tax rate bylaws, written notice of intention to propose a bylaw shall be given at the meeting prior to the first reading. Every bylaw shall be dealt with as follows. Before it is passed, a bylaw of the board must be given 3 distinct readings. Except as provided in subsection C, at each reading of a bylaw, the bylaw must be read in full. If a written or printed copy of the bylaw is in the possession of each trustee and is available to each member of the public in attendance at the meeting at which the bylaw is to be read, a reading of a bylaw may consist of a description of the bylaw, its title, and a summary of its contents. The board shall not give a bylaw more than 2 readings at any one meeting unless the members of the board who are present at the meeting unanimously agree to give the bylaw all 3 readings at that meeting. When a bylaw has been amended, it shall be reprinted as amended and shall not be further proceeded with until the amended version has been distributed except by a vote of a 2/3 majority. A bylaw may be advanced 2 or more steps in one day by a 2/3 majority or on an urgent or extraordinary occasions, the determination of which shall be by the chairperson. The secretary treasurer shall certify on a copy of each bylaw that the bylaw was read a first, second, and third time, and shall note that the bylaw was finally passed and adopted. Any amendments passed shall also be noted in the same manner. The trustee who introduces a bylaw may withdraw the same at any stage with unanimous consent. Procedure for notices of motion. A notice of motion permits the board to consider and prepare for the questions or questions that will be placed before them for consideration, thereby facilitating discussion and contributing to the efficient and satisfactory discharge of the matter. Or, if a substantial issue is to be raised affecting the Constitution, policies, or procedures of the board, notice will be given at one meeting that such issue will be introduced by motion at the next or a subsequent meeting. The following shall only be resolved by notice of motion. Election of chairperson or vice chairperson is defined in section 1.6. Policies, variances to the budget, items brought forward for closure next meeting, all new board bylaws, amendments to all board bylaws. Notice of motions shall be dealt with in the following stages. Notice of motion made by trustee, notice of motion brought forward to the agenda of either public or committee meeting, Motion seconded and voted on unless referred for further consideration. If referred for further consideration, a date shall be given as to when the item may be brought back, is to be brought back. This bylaw may be cited for all purposes as School District Number 60, Peace River Bylaw Number 190, a bylaw to provide for the conduct to meetings of the board and is passed in compliance with the requirements of the School Act. Okay, I need a drink of water. Thank you. So, that is the first reading in full. So can I get a motion that the second and third reading can be read in short form, please? Moved by Ida, seconded by Bill. We adopted already, right?
No, we need a mover to move the first reading.
Okay, I need a motion to adopt the first reading, please. Moved by Madeline, seconded by Aaron. Okay, so that's done. So I need that. Okay. And I jumped ahead. We do have a motion first moved and seconded that the second and third readings shall be in short form. Okay. Let's go to the second reading. Can we fix the he, she's, or does that have to wait till next time? There's a few he, she's in here that aren't here.
I think we could fix them.
Okay, we're looking at the second reading of bylaw number 190, a bylaw to provide for the organization of the board. Section 1, inaugural meetings, goes through the process for electing a chairperson with the secretary, treasurer, or superintendent of schools acting until a chairperson is elected. It goes through the process for elections for board chairperson, vice chairperson, provincial councillor, and our BCPC rep. A majority of the board can elect a new chair at any point in time, or vice chairperson by proposing a motion and following up with it a month later. Trustees can attend meetings electronically for the election. They need to give the results to a scrutineer who's in attendance at the meeting, and trustees who know they will not be available for the election meeting shall let the board chairperson know prior to the meeting what positions they will let their name stand for. Chairperson and presiding officer, section 2 goes through the roles and how we preside at meetings. Section 3, meetings general information, goes through what happens at our meetings, how minutes are recorded, the kind of concept of what a quorum is. It also has an element of the fact that there is a certain decorum expected in meetings, and trustees can expel a trustee. A regular meeting shall be held a minimum of once per month, and this section for regular meetings goes through what a regular meeting would look like, the need for agendas to be provided 72 hours in advance, and the process for adding or changing the prescribed order of business. Special meetings, this section goes through the fact that from time to time, a special meeting may need to be called, and a notice for a special meeting is only 24 hours, and it needs to be a single topic meeting. If trustees agree to waive notice, there can be. Electronic meeting expectations, this section goes through the rationale for developing the expectations for trustees in electronic meetings, the process for joining an online meeting, conduct during a meeting. Closed session is section 7, and it deals with what the matters that are dealt with in committee, and public may not be present for things that deal with personnel matters, legal matters, student matters, property matters, auditor's management letter, medical matters, and such matters as the board may in public session determine. Section 8 goes through our rules of order for conducting a meeting, which we have Robert's Rules of Order guides some things, the standing orders of BC legislature, and ultimately the school law. It also goes through how we get to change one of these bylaws. Section 9 deals with motions and how we put a motion forward, how they're seconded. It also deals with motions related to the timing of meetings and the need to add time or whatever. Reconsideration, section 10, a question may be reconsidered only if notice has been given of a request and 2/3 agree. Debate, this goes through our process for debate and defines that our debate should be relevant to the question before the meeting. There's the concept of a matter of privilege. Section 12 is related to voting and how we will vote at meetings, and our procedure if there is a tie and things like that. Committees, section 13 deals with the fact that we can have committees and how our standing board committees will operate. Section 14 relates to bylaws and resolutions and confirms that all matters shall be dealt with by motion, notice of motion or bylaw. Procedure on bylaws is section 15, with the exception of the School Loan Act. Bylaws and student referendum, we always need written intention, and we need 3 readings, and there are some exceptions to needing to read the whole thing in the whole 10 pages, something in a meeting. Procedures for notice of motion are found in section number 16, and that's it for the second reading. So we'll proceed to the third reading. Oh, no, we need to adopt the second reading first, right? Okay. Adopted by Bill, seconded by David. Thank you. Okay, third reading, short form.
We have to vote on it, Helen.
Oh, sorry, thank you, Aaron. All in favor? Keep me honest. This is so much fun. Mover, so can I have a mover and seconder that we're going to look at the third reading?
We've already done that.
I've already done it. Okay, I just want to get this done.
Yeah,
We did. It's Bill and David. Okay. Bylaw number 90, a bylaw to provide for the organization of the board. Section 1 goes through inaugural meetings, and we made some changes there that are outlined in red regarding our election procedures, and we have added some concept of people attending electronically or providing advance notice of what offices they would like to hold. Chairperson and presiding officers, this goes through their role and their duties a little bit. Section 3, meetings, general information, goes through our process for how we make a decision, how it's recorded. This section does give us the right to exclude a board member or any member of the general public and have some conduct things in it. Regular meetings is section 4, and it goes through our process for meetings. Special meetings is section 5, and it goes through the details of when and how we can hold a special meeting. Section 6 relates to electronic meeting expectations and what trustees need to do before and after and during the meeting. Section 7 deals with what is or is a closed session where matters of the public or staff can be asked to be excluded based on what is being discussed at the meeting. Section number 8 deals with our rules of order. Section 9 deals with motions. Section 10 deals with reconsideration. Section 11 deals with debate. 12 with voting. 13 with committees. 14 with bylaws and resolutions. And 15 with procedures on bylaws. And 16 procedures for notices of motion. That is third very short reading. So can we need to
I'll
Thank you. Moved by Ida, seconded by Bill. Okay, moving on to item number D.
We have to vote.
All in favor? That three reading stuff rattles me every time. And 10 pages? Whoa.
You did good.
Done. Policy committee meetings notes from April the 11th, 2022 are attached. I would like to thank Bill for agreeing to take over future policy committee meetings.
Thank you, Bill.
So, some of the things that are noted in the minutes are some work that we're going to go through now.
Can I present something potentially after I saw you read the bylaw 190? If I could take, because I thought we were sending it out for notice of motion, I missed, and in our meetings this weekend, I think I would like to send it into the BCX-STA just to get them to read the election bylaw before you read it in full, and then they come back and say, hey, you gotta change this. Is that?
Do we normally submit our bylaws to them to look through?
We don't, but it just came up at our BC ASBIL meetings.
Can I make a suggestion that we do the first reading for the election bylaw of 422? Is that the one that you're talking about?
Yeah.
The one that we just, yeah, the trustee election bylaw 422?
Yeah, because we do have some time.
Can I suggest that we do the first reading tonight as it says, and then put off the second and third reading pending feedback from,
Okay, that's very good.
So,
Thank
okay,
you.
Angela, I need some clarity. What, are you just talking about this 10-page thing that we did?
No,
Oh,
your upcoming one.
Okay.
It's only 4 pages though.
Okay, sorry.
Are you just talking about that?
Have to read that again?
No, I thought it was that page. You scared me.
It's just that policy that you want to put forward to them, right?
The employment-related accommodation.
No, the trustee elections
Yeah.
bylaw.
Just that one?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you meant every policy.
No, my apologies, sorry.
Okay, well, the trustee election bylaw is way down, so.
I totally knew what you meant, Angela.
Thank you, Erin. I'm glad you did, because I lost it. Okay,
Sorry, thank you.
thanks, Erin. Okay, let's look at proposed policy 4022, employment-related accommodation. I need a mover because we're putting this forward for notice of motion. Moved by David. And this deals with some changes to, and tidies up some of the language related to teacherages. So it's before you and it's going out for notice of motion. Any questions related to that one? Great, moving on to 5003, physical examination of bus drivers. And we would like to put forward policy 5003 for notice of motion. Moved by Madeline. Going forward. Any questions related to this one? So it goes forward to notice of motion. Now, I'm going to catch up with Angela. So we're not going to read this, and the suggestion has been, you want the first reading tonight?
Sure, if we,
Because you can, if we only do the first reading,
then we can make.
then we
Any
can make
possible.
changes at the second and third. Got it, Erin?
Yep, that's correct.
All right. Oh, that's an easy one. Okay, bylaw number 422. And that reflects the year we're having the elections in, and it's one that we have to update every year, just so you know.
Every 4 years.
Every 4 years. A bylaw to provide for the determination of various procedures for the conduct of general school elections and other trustee elections. We're doing the first reading.
I think we have to make a motion for the first.
We have to do a motion for the first reading? Okay. Moved by Madeline. Thank you, Erin. See, it takes a village. All right,
First and a second.
But I thought we read it and then we made the motion.
No, I think we have to make a motion to do the first reading and then we can read it and pass it. And then it goes to second and third reading at the next meeting. I think that's how, because with the first one, we made a motion to do all three readings tonight. And that's why normally when you do have bylaws, you only do one reading and then it's kind of like a notice of motion, right? You only do one reading and then you wait the 30 days and then to the next meeting and then you do the second and third reading. But because we did the last bylaw, we did all three readings tonight, we had to make a motion to do all three readings. And then, but I think we have to make a motion just to do one reading tonight and then she reads it and then we pass it.
right. So Madeline has made a motion that we do the first reading of this bylaw tonight. Bylaw 422, a bylaw to provide for the determination of various procedures for the conduct of general school elections and other trustee elections. Preamble, under the School Act, the Board of Education may by bylaw determine various procedures and requirements to be applied in the conduct of trustee elections. In School District Number 60, Peace River North, trustee elections are held in the following trustee electoral areas. General description of each trustee electoral area. Area 1 includes Cecil Lake, Goodloe, and Clayhurst, 1 trustee. Area 2 includes Presbyterian, Buick, Rose Prairie, Doig River, First Nation, Blueberry River First Nation, North Pine, Montney, and 101 East, 1 trustee. Area 3 includes the District of Hudson Hope, Upper Cache, the Dene Nation, and Williston Lake, 1 trustee. Area 4 includes the District of Taylor, Beldonald, and Two Rivers, 1 trustee. Area 5 includes the City of Fort St. John, the Upper Halfway River First Nation, 101, Charlie Lake, Pink Mountain, and north to mile 225 on the Alaska Highway, and that is for 3 trustees. And as illustrated in Appendix 1 attached to and forming part of this bylaw. The board wishes to establish various procedures and requirements under the authority of the School Act for trustee elections. The board in an open meeting assembled enacts as follows. Definitions. The term used in this bylaw shall have the meanings assigned by the School Act, the Local Government Act, and the Local Elections Campaign Financing Act, except as the context indicates otherwise. Board means the Board of Education of School District Number 60, Peace River North by-election, which means a trustee election to fill a vacancy on the board at any time, in any of the circumstances described in Section 36 of the School Act. Election means a trustee election. General voting day means the date on which general voting for a trustee election is to take place, whether part of the general school elections or a by-election. Minister means the Minister of Education. Regional district means the Peace River Regional District, and TEA is the acronym for Trustee Electoral Area. Application 2.1. This bylaw applies to both general school elections and by-elections, except as otherwise indicated in this bylaw. Required advanced voting opportunities, number 3. Unless the board is exempted from the requirement by order of the Minister of Education, the required advanced voting opportunity will be held on the 10th day before general voting day, and no other advanced voting opportunity will be held in all trustee electoral areas. Order of names on the ballot. The order of names of candidates on the ballot will be alphabetical. Resolution of the tie vote after judicial recount. In the event of tie vote after judicial recount, the tie vote will be resolved by lot in accordance with the Local Government Act. Website access to candidate nomination documents and campaign financing disclosure statements. The board authorizes public access during the regular office hours at the board's office to nomination documents and trustee candidates by internet or other electronic means until 30 days after declaration of election results. In accordance with the Local Elections Campaign Financing Act, the board will be available to the public for inspection during the regular office hour of the board's head office the trustee candidates' campaign financing disclosure statements and supplementary reports by internet access until 5 years after general voting day for the election to which the trustee campaign's financial disclosure statement and supplementary reports relate. Before providing the services under section 6, the board requires the person requesting the service to A, certify that any purpose for which personal information is to be used is permitted by section 63 of the Local Elections Campaign Financing Act, and B, certify that the individuals and, if applicable, any individual organization on whose behalf the first individual is accessing, inspecting, or obtaining the copy or other record will not use personal information included in the copy or other record except for purpose permitted under the Local Elections Campaign Financing Act. Application of local government bylaws. In TEA number 3, the District of Hudson's Hope conducts part of the trustee election. The election bylaws of the District of Hudson Hope, as they may be amended from time to time, to apply to that part of the trustee electoral area, except for any bylaws determining the minimum number of nominators, the order of names on the ballot, the resolution of the votes after judicial count requiring a nomination deposit, or any other matter in which the local government bylaws may not bylaw apply to a trustee election. In TEA number 4, the District of Taylor conducts part of the trustee election. The election bylaws of the District of Taylor, as they may be amended from time to time, apply to that part of the trustee electoral area, except for any bylaws determining the minimum number of nominators, the order of names on the ballot, the resolution of the votes after judicial recount requiring a nomination deposit, or any other matter in which the local government bylaws may not bylaw apply to a trustee election. In TEA number 5, if the city of Fort St. John conducts part of the trustee election, the elections bylaw of the city of Fort St. John, as they may be amended from time to time, apply to that part of the trustee electoral area, except for any bylaws determining the minimum number of nominators or the order of names on the ballot, the resolution of the votes after judicial recount requiring a nomination deposit, or any other matter in which the local government bylaws may bylaw apply to a trustee election. Section 8, elections conducted by the board. The chief election officer is authorized to establish additional advance voting opportunities for each election and to designate the voting places, establish the date and the voting hours for these voting opportunities in all trustee electoral areas. Number 9, additional general voting opportunities. The chief election officer is authorized to establish additional general voting opportunities for general voting day for each election and to designate the voting places and voting hours within the limits set out in the Local Government Act for such voting opportunities. Special voting opportunities, section 10, in order to give electors who may otherwise be unable to vote an opportunity to do so. Special voting opportunities may be established by the chief election officer for hospital patients, seniors in a retirement home, or persons subject to a disability who will be qualified to vote at the special voting opportunity, and the chief election officer is authorized to establish the location, date, voting hours, and procedures within the time limit set out in the Local Government Act for each special voting opportunity. The chief election officer is authorized to limit the number of candidate representatives who may be present at the special voting opportunity. Voting day registration only, section 11.1. As authorized under the School Act and the Local Government Act, at each election, electors who wish to vote must register at the time of voting. 2. Registration as an elector under subsection 1 is effective only for which the voting is being conducted at that time. Number of scrutineers at voting places. The maximum number of scrutineers for each candidate that may attend an election is 1 per ballot box for each candidate. This bylaw may be cited as School District number 60, Peace Review number 4. That should be 22, right?
Yes.
Number 422. School District number 60, Peace River North Trustees election bylaw number 418 is hereby repealed. Okay. look at the section that deals with application of local government bylaws, does that mean that the Peace River Regional District, which I think does do some of the voting at the same time, is a different entity, so we don't have TEA 1 and 2 listed in here?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Pardon?
That's a great point.
Well, I was wondering where they were, but.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I brought up before, when the regional district didn't have the elections going on.
That's right.
What, you know, I'd mentioned, so what happens then?
Well,
Well, if they don't have an election, we would run the election.
But there's been times before that there hasn't.
Elections BC did the last one. Was it-
I'm saying
School
when,
district did.
Yeah, it would be
Was it
People
the
have committee,
district
yeah.
that would run the election.
And I have to say, I kind of looked at the areas before, but until I had to read this out, I'm looking and I'm going, Area 5 includes the upper halfway and the halfway First River Nation and 101.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know. I guess I always thought they were part of Area 2.
No,
Just, then there's only two.
Oh, some of 101.
Well, there's only two residences on that side of the highway.
Okay. Okay. Just some things that seem surprising.
That's good feedback. And then the other one was, I think it was brought up at policy committee, the order of names of candidates on the ballot will be alphabetical by last name.
Yeah, by last name. That actually came up at AGM where somebody got up before the board of directors meeting and said it was alphabetical by last name.
So we'll add that.
And put the last name in there.
and that for, to 22 at the end there.
Yes.
yes, see, our copy says by last name. The one
Yeah,
that we
right.
have.
By last name?
It does say it, our copy.
So,
With the copy of mine, I didn't miss it.
No, because you didn't read it, I know, I noticed that you didn't read it.
No,
so-
number 4 in my package doesn't have will be
Yeah.
alphabetical
had
by
it in
last
there.
name. So I didn't miss something.
No,
Did we have a seconder for that and then we have to move it?
So can we have a seconder, please? We should have done the discussion after. Second by Ida. All in favor? All right. So the BCSTA, and it's been circulated to you, put out something that suggested what is involved in comprehensive code of conduct stuff for trustees. In reading the original bylaw, you can see that you can put somebody out of a meeting, expel them from a meeting, but there's not a lot of definition of what else you can do, what your sanctions are, what would lead to that. And especially with the stuff that's coming up about people perhaps running in single agenda items and things like that, the BCSTA is very much urging us to have comprehensive code of conduct things in place. At policy committee, there were sample policies, but they do read like books. And as a board, we've sort of said we wanted streamed down policies, but there is a time, is this a time where more provides you with some protection? So what I wanted to come out of this discussion was some direction for policy committee as to whether we want to move to more comprehensive policy with all the steps and procedures and the guideline that's been put in by the BCSTA, or do we leave ours the way it is? BCSTA's rationale is that if you don't have it set out in advance and agreed to, and trouble occurs, it is much harder for you to deal with because then you're making up a process as you go. Having the book and the process Doesn't mean you have to use it. It just protects you in case there's a need.
I think we should definitely have it.
And it was me that brought it forward, and it was important to me, but this is a corporate board. So before we ask for the policy committee and district staff to do work that put some more in-depth stuff in place, I wanted to make sure that this was something that everybody felt was important. Ida?
I think it's important to have it in there because not that it's going to happen, but if you had a whole total different board, at least if it's in policy, they would have something that they would be able to look at and say, well, you know, and they would be trying to make it on the go. Like we don't have a problem right now. This is when we should be making the policy, not when there's a problem.
Make the policy when it's good.
Yeah, I agree, especially on the procedure end. I think there should be maybe, because I did look at those books,
Yes.
and that's probably too detailed, because I'm always thinking policy, if they get to be that big, who reads them anyways? So then maybe, you know, have definite some steps and awareness for procedures in the policy, and then how much can you then put it into a procedure? Like, the policy has to have something. I think we have nothing right now.
And I mean, we have smattering bits of things in different places, and we have elements, but we don't kind of have it all in, we don't necessarily all have it in one place. And that statement that we could expel somebody from a meeting for poor manners or we don't, you know. So I'm offended by the use of one word as a chair. Is that enough for me to ask a person from the public to leave or a trustee to leave the meeting? Like, it's.
But how do you,
Yeah, I staff really appreciate the sort of spirit of the direction to establish, you know, a more robust code of conduct plan, especially with more specific consequences or sanctions, we call them, right, in policies. My understanding of the conversation in policy was to build, perhaps, maybe build on what we have, which had already brought together a few pieces in that policy. And so I think the missing piece is the sanctions or the consequences. And to sort of answer Trustee Lehman's question, this is an area where you can sort of get procedural because it's a governance policy for governance for yourselves, and that's okay. I would just caution, like in a classroom, you're not able to predict or come up with every single possible rule or scenario. There would be no end to the policy. So I think there is enough interest that we could work on this.
Aaron?
Yeah, I think that too, we have to be really careful about personality clashes. Like, just because somebody has a strong personality or because you disagree with them, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're bullying or, you know, any of those kinds of things. Like, there's actual definitions of what bullying is in WCB and, you know, other government organizations as well. And so I think we do have to be careful with something like this. Our board's always been really good at you know, disagreeing, but at the end of the day, we're all there for the right reason and for the reason that we need to be there. And so just because we disagree around a board table doesn't mean that somebody should be expelled, right? And I know that some board members around the province have felt that way, and one, you know, particularly is a friend of mine who's felt that way, that because, you know, they've disagreed with the new board members that have come on board, that they, you know, were somewhat punished for it in a sense. So I think we do have to be careful, and like, I don't know, it's a tough one because it's just a tough one. I mean, I think if you're going to stand up there and get on the table and start swearing and jumping and yelling at one another, I mean, that's different, right? Then I think the secretary treasurer and the superintendent should be like, okay, this meeting's shut down now and the police are going to be called and everybody needs to disperse. But I don't know. I think we have to be careful because there's a fine line between, you know, people getting heated because they're passionate about something and people being abusive. And that's, yeah.
So Aaron, I want to thank you because I did send out the BCSTA guidelines around this stuff, and you responded back and let me know that you thought they were quite thorough. So one of the things that we could do is ask staff to look at that set of guidelines, which is quite thorough, figure out where we may have pieces of it, and then figure out what we need to add and where we need to put it. It may be that it's just some addition to some of the existing places that we have, but I know that there's missing pieces, and having those pieces in place actually protects staff as well.
Mhm. So the good thing about our policy, oh, sorry, if I'm interrupting, Helen,
That's okay. Go.
okay. The good thing about our policies and how we have it laid out is that they can be links to other policies too, right? So if we do write something new, it can be just short and sweet with links to refer to this, and this, right? Attached to it. And that's the good thing about how the new setup is done, is that we don't have to put everything in there. We can say, it's this, and then have the, refer to these other policies as well, right? So.
David?
No, I was gonna say, take what the BCSA already has and kind of tweak it to what we need, but at least everybody has an understanding of where the red line is. You can go right up to it, but don't cross it.
I don't know, would it be beneficial to look at like what's the section, the act, like when you want to remove somebody from a school?
It's
177, no,
Yeah.
that's not applicable here.
No?
But I think what the chair is hearing is that there's consensus to continue this work
Yeah.
and to look at this and to expand upon it. And that's what I think the policy committee was looking for tonight.
We need at least a guideline.
Well, because, and I mean, policy committee is not the whole board. And when we're talking, and I know it brings stuff back to the whole board, but this is stuff that impacts the whole board. It provides some direction for staff, but also some work for staff. So I think it has to be something that we all feel is important to do. Ida?
Yeah, we also actually talked about this, and I'm not sure whether it was in the risk management when we were talking, or I think it was risk. And we just touched on a bit about what does your board do if somebody is yeah. So we did discuss that, and I think we, at that time too, we also said, yeah, we should just add some to ours and
Considering what we just saw.
consider what we would do if, like, if all of a sudden I got up and I slammed the door. And I'm sure it was risk management.
Considering what we just went through with some of the stories we heard down at AGM, that's probably a good idea that we do something.
Well, I was going to say the challenge is that some of it is really subjective too, right? So, David, I appreciate that you said bump up against the red line, but that red line is subjective to each and every one of us, right? And so the challenge is, what does the law say? WCB has got some great legislation around this. And so, I think that might be a place to go, and is to look at WCB's legislation, because reprimanding or disagreeing with somebody isn't bullying and it's not harassment, right? And we all know that. And that's the challenge, is that I found in reading some of the stuff that have been going on around the province is, I look at it, and partly because I don't know the full story, but I look at it from an observer and reading what I'm hearing, and I'm like, okay, so were they just asking questions and questioning, these people, and wondering, like, trying to find more information because they're unsure or not, and how was that then bullying and harassment, right? And then because people get defensive and flooded, that's when conflict happens, as opposed to just really looking at it as they're just curious and wanting to know, right? And so I do feel that we have to really kind of proceed with caution and stuff like this, because we want to allow people to be free and safe to question and not feel like that they're going to be, asked to leave. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
I think, Erin, where some of the fear that I heard on Sunday morning is, what do you do with a candidate that has said they're running again, is anti-SOGI, and gets up at a meeting and says something that is absolutely inappropriate inconsistent with education, Ministry of Education and everything else, and puts your district kind of in a negative light. And I think because we weren't shut down, there was, Vista, Vancouver Island School Board Association, when they were talking, they talked about numerous places where they had meetings disrupted by people pounding on the windows and chanting and doing all kinds of things. Now they're learning that there's candidates that are going to be coming forward that were those chanters. So that's where some of that's coming from.
But you know what? We live in a democracy. And they have, if they get voted on, it means that people support them in their message. And so what that also tells me is that the other side needs to get out and rally and get people out to vote. You know, they're allowed to run. They, you know, as much as I totally disagree with their message and everything else, they are legally, they are allowed to run. And if they get elected, they get elected.
It's
And
not the running that these people are worried about. It's seeing what's happened brought into their boardroom and how
so then they have a lot of work to do to make sure that they don't win.
Okay. Ida?
Yeah, I agree partially with Aaron that they have the right to run. But I think what we're looking for as a board, if it gets disruptive and it's not, everybody has their own opinions. I agree with that. And I might not agree with Madeline or Dave, but we respect each other. And I guess that's what we're talking about.
As long as you agree with me, Ida.
The board respects each other.
Stephen?
Yeah, and so these, if you read through the code of conduct that we currently have, for example, there's a number of items there that really, and by the way, this is not just about boardroom behavior during meetings.
No, it's not.
This is about actions that undermine the district, which could take the form of a number of things outside of board meetings, inappropriate conversations with people, undermining, you know, district operations. And so it's actually, there is some clarity in terms of that code of conduct. What we're missing is what can you do about it as a board? And so it can apply to different things. So I don't think we need to get stuck on the whole elections piece, even though that is current. It is about what do you do about it?
Okay. So I just feel I needed that this was important to everybody, and I think it is important to everybody. VCSTA report. Well, we all do. AGM, I've sent you the motions. We'll see what comes out. The motions that we put on the floor, all the 4 motions from NIB were put in. What other comments do people have after AGM? Aaron, we did miss you. You would have loved the whole Aboriginal presentation because the first 2 days were completely in Longhouse format.
Ooh.
And Bill, being the wonderful leader he is, made sure we were front row, which meant that there was times when the speakers were right in people's faces. But it was a very different format, and in some ways, a very emotionally draining 2 days before you got into the motions part of things.
During the motions part of things, did somebody bring candy? Like,
Oh, we forgot.
None of us.
Nicole was very upset.
They're just about ready to steal off of the tables.
did anybody bang the table?
Yeah.
Yes, a little,
Okay,
a
good.
little.
Okay, as long as that was done, I will forgive the lack of candy brought out for everybody.
Compared to before, it was, in past years, it was mild.
I was there was a piece of me going and looking at the tables where these people had candies and bags of cheesies and things, and I'm not sure if your board's talked about the gold standard. We don't have anything at our table because, no, I'm just kidding.
I learned many years ago, the gold standard is to have candy to share, and somebody will always, bring some coffees if everybody needs it, and that's just kind of how it goes, Helen. And as the chair, I think you were ultimately responsible for that.
You can delegate that off properly.
We had one before that, so I mean, how are we supposed to know, right?
I'm just
The
kidding. I'm just-
hotel had candies on the table the first time. This hotel doesn't do candies. The other hotel did candies. So, right, BCPC, we did briefly already have a report. Board Prody Committee, the next thing for that would probably be to start to do the advanced planning. So we'll send some things out with some ideas and see what we need to get going for that. All right, correspondence included in your package was, just for your information, some correspondence for this is from the Society for Humane Science, encouraging people to consider policies related to dissection and things like that. So it's there. People can read it and bring back thoughts related to it. We don't have any unfinished business. I don't think we have any new business, which means it's Michelle's turn.
Thank you very much. Thanks for allowing in person. This is really a treat. I do have a question about the board policy, just around the process, around the employment-related accommodation. And I understand that Presbyterian 101 Upper Halfway have teacherages. Does Clearview? Okay, thank you. I was wondering about that.
Hudson Hope.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
We have one.
One. And so this is going to be sent out to for feedback?
Yeah.
And then do people or do teachers email feedback around this, and then it gets brought up at the next board meeting? That's all I need to know. Thank you very much. It was a process clarification for me. Okay, thank you. And that's all that I have. We have our AGM in May, and we'll discuss that. Our next meeting is going to be hybrid, kind of like this, just because not everybody is comfortable meeting in person, right? And so I like to give that option. So AGM, just with voting, that is what makes it difficult to do secret ballot. And so I have some logistical things to think about around that, as everybody does.
I must thank Michelle.
What's that?
I must thank you.
For what?
She does allow the hybrid for her meetings.
Yeah.
Means my wife goes to the office
Right.
and has a meeting with her,
Yeah.
so it avoids any conflict with us.
Yeah, I know, right? I always
appreciate
think,
it.
yeah.
So you don't have to get out of the house?
Have they developed an electronic voting process that you could use?
Oh, we use SurveyMonkey.
Okay.
So we bought a license for that, to be able to use that, and we're so far, I'm just trying to think of in-person hybrid, how we would, I think it would still be possible. I just think for the end of this school year, that I should offer that, right? And I know that you do, so I think that's great. Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity to present with Margaret. That was a real treat, so thank you.
So, can I have a motion that our in-camera motions are brought forward for implementation and not related to superintendent? Moved by Aaron, my mover, seconded by David. All in favor? And now, the big motion.